Today we're talking about testosterone, and if you want higher levels, you need to approach it the right way. Because frankly, there's a lot of BS out there about which supplements to take that supposedly increase testosterone. Because the wrong way is looking at it and picking the longest label and hoping that it's working. But if you want to assess your options before TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, you need to know the truth. My name is Raphael Al-Najaar. I'm a medical doctor specializing in men's hormones, fertility, and performance, and I work with TRT and testosterone every single day. And in this video, I'm going to give you my 3 supplements that actually move the needle if you want higher testosterone levels. And if those 3 don't fit your situation or don't work for you, there's no reason to go for bottle number 4. It's time to go for professional help to figure out what's actually holding you back so you can move in the right direction. And I work with men who want more than a supplement list. Because my filter is human evidence, who was studied, what happened, and whether the product is actually safe enough to recommend. Because most of these testosterone boosters fall apart because the evidence is too weak, they give out too low dosages, or the ingredient simply doesn't fit the man and where he is. And so in this video, I'm going to show you the 3 that I would go for and in which situation I would pick them. But I've also included 2 very popular options that I don't think that you should take. Because one of them actually moved total testosterone, but wasn't tested thoroughly enough for safety. And the other one looked pretty good in the first trial, but they couldn't repeat those same findings in another trial. And so I'm going to show you those 2 that I don't recommend at the end of the video. Download my blood work guide in the first link in the description while you watch this video so you can map out which markers you need to look for and figure out what your starting point is before you make your decisions on supplements or if TRT is really necessary for you. Now, before I give you any ingredients, let me give you my supplement filter so you understand how you should look at these things. First, which kind of human evidence exists out there? Because you can't just look at mouse studies and then translate that into a human outcome. Second, who was studied? Was it a man who was already deficient with low total testosterone, maybe even low free testosterone? Or was it someone who was mid-range who was trying to optimize to get an edge? And third, what actually changed? Was it total testosterone? But did free testosterone just stay the same? Because then it doesn't make any sense. Was it estrogen that then increased? Because you don't want that either. Or did it actually improve their libido, their strength, and their body fat percentage? Fourth, what was the safety cost? Because an ingredient can move your total testosterone, but if it's not safe to take, then does that even make sense? And fifth, would this test pass outside of a laboratory? Or do you only see an increase in these controlled instances? Think of it like choosing a key, right? Because a key can work perfectly, but if you're using it on the wrong lock, nothing is going to happen. And so obviously with that analogy, I have to tell you that the human physiology is very advanced. And so you can't just throw different things at it and hope that it's going to stick. And this is why, honestly, I don't always like these questions about which supplements should I take to increase my testosterone. Now I'm making this video on it, but most people think they can just take one thing and then that's going to solve all their problems. And so that's also why I decided to make this video, because I get a lot of these questions almost every day. And so I really want to help you get more background information on what you should do and whether TRT is the solution for you in the end anyways. Now, obviously, none of this is medical advice. It's only for information and education purposes only. I am a medical doctor, but I'm not your medical doctor, and this is only a YouTube video. So please don't make any changes based on this video alone, but use them to ask questions to your own doctor. Now, let's get into it because the first option is probably going to be the best one. And what I always like to say is figure out what your bottleneck is and then go for that. And the first option here matches that rule exactly. Number 1 is zinc, but only when zinc is genuinely your bottleneck. Now, we know that zinc is involved in normal reproductive and hormonal function, but it doesn't mean that if you keep spamming zinc, your testosterone is going to increase. Because the useful question is, are you eating enough zinc, or is it simply because you're not absorbing it well enough? Now, we had a study from 1996, so an old study, where they took 4 young men who underwent a dietary zinc restriction. And over 20 weeks, their testosterone levels actually fell from 40 to 11, and that's in nanomoles per liter. In a second part of that same study, they gave 9 marginally zinc deficient older men zinc, and their testosterone increased from 8 to 16 nanomoles per liter. And this was over 6 months. Now, that sounds dramatic, but don't fall out of the chair yet, because there were only 9 men in that repletion group where they gave them zinc, and there were no placebo controlled. And so this is more evidence that zinc deficiency can suppress your testosterone production, not necessarily that if you take more zinc, you're going to increase it, or rather that if you take zinc, you're going to double your testosterone levels. There was another study done where they took exercising men and gave them zinc. And they found that the zinc levels in the bloodstream increased, but their testosterone levels didn't really change. And so my personal verdict is very simple. If you take zinc because you're deficient, it can increase your testosterone levels. But if you already have enough zinc in the bloodstream, it might not do anything. Not to your total testosterone or to your free testosterone, which is the most important thing here that you have to remember. It's the free testosterone always. And then safety matters here too, because if you take too much zinc, it's going to influence your copper absorption. And if you're on antibiotics, that matters as well. And so I'm not going to give you a dosage you should take. The safe dosage is usually up to 40 milligrams per day. But again, this depends on your diet, on your blood work, and whether zinc is actually your bottleneck. Now, if you thought that zinc was bad, just wait for the next one, because it had a real signal in this study. But the context matters and the purity matters as well. And so number 2 is ashwagandha. And so this is definitely not treatment for clinical hypogonadism, which means real testosterone deficiency. And I wouldn't say that every single ashwagandha bottle out there is the same quality either. And so in 2015, they did a randomized trial, which is the best way to figure out if there's evidence behind any of these things that you want to test. And they found in 57 novice male lifters that testosterone actually increased when they told them to do strength training while also taking ashwagandha. And the good thing about this study is that they also had a placebo group where they also saw a testosterone increase over this period of 8 weeks, but it was more significant in the ashwagandha and exercise group. And so this was very interesting, but again, because it only increased 96 nanograms per deciliter, it's hard to base a recommendation on that alone. And the trial was small as well. A 2019 study looked at 40 to 70-year-old overweight men who had fatigue. And they saw that testosterone increased in their saliva about 15%, but it didn't affect how they felt. This is something that I say a lot. It doesn't matter what your testosterone number is in the blood work if you can't feel it. And even if it increases, if you can't feel that increase in your own body, then it doesn't really make sense. And so it doesn't really matter what the number is unless you're clinically hypogonadic. Because if you're just in the mid-range, but your symptoms aren't improving, you shouldn't really trust whatever you're taking. And so we can say that standardized ashwagandha has some short-term increase of testosterone, but it doesn't prove that every man will feel better, or that it's going to increase testosterone for every single man. Now, ashwagandha also works as an adaptogen, and so that works just like antidepressant medication. And because of that, it can have maybe some of those side effects as well. And then we haven't even mentioned the drowsiness, the upset stomach, diarrhea, or vomiting. And so even though ashwagandha was shown to increase your testosterone levels, it's not something that I would recommend blindly to everyone. And I didn't even use ashwagandha when I helped Matteo improve, well, not only improve, but double his testosterone levels. But what we did was we looked at his blood work, his situation, how he felt, and he was already feeling very good. And his total testosterone doubled to over 1,000. And now, approximately 1.5 years later, he still feels amazing from what we did and the lifestyle changes we implemented back then. And so obviously this also happened because he did what I told him to do, and he was very much wanting to be successful in this. He's successful in a lot of realms already. And so this is obviously not something that I can guarantee you, but it just goes to show that when you have a look at the blood work, when you look at the starting point and you attack the bottleneck, you can really improve a lot of things. And that's why you can use the blood work guide, which is the first link in the description, to figure out what your starting point is. And if you already know and you want to improve, have a look at my Performance Rebuild mentorship program. It's 6 months working with me, where we look at where you are, what you need to do, how you can implement it, and then see you get results. Like I always say, it's usually for men who have more money than they have time. But if you're ready and if you want results, I can almost guarantee that we can help you. And if you want my full attention, you can apply to work with me on a one-to-one basis. There's also going to be a link in the description for that. Now, let's get back to the supplements, because number 3 has the most fragile evidence of them all, also due to a product quality issue. Number 3 is purified shilajit, and this one has the largest asterisk of them all. 96 men aged 45 to 55 were assigned to purified branded Shilajit extract or placebo, and 75 completed the trial and were included in the analysis. In the active group, testosterone rose from 484 to 583 nanograms per deciliter, and free testosterone rose from approximately 15 to 18 picograms per milliliter. In the placebo group, both total and free testosterone actually fell. Now, there's a reason this is improved, because these two groups started with two different testosterone levels. 21 participants didn't even complete the trial, and the manufacturer supplied the product and financially supported the study as well. And the trial didn't prove better libido, fertility, strength, or body composition. And then we have the FDA that warned that some of these products actually include lead, arsenic, and mercury. And for me, that's obviously not something that I want to risk. And so Shilajit might work, but if it contains these toxicants, I would never trust it without doing third-party testing myself first. So again, this doesn't mean that Shilajit doesn't work or it works, but we have some preliminary data that shows that it might increase the testosterone levels, but we have to be careful and we have to do third-party testing. Now, let's talk about the popular products that didn't get on the list. Now, the first one is Tongkat Ali, and this might be the most well-known testosterone booster out there. The issue, though, it didn't fit my safety requirements. Because in 2021, a manufacturer-funded trial showed that if you gave people Tongkat Ali, it would increase their total testosterone. But when you compared a group that got Tongkat Ali and a placebo, there was no difference in free testosterone, which is what you want to see. You want the free testosterone to increase, not only the total. And then we had the European Food Safety Authority that reviewed the standardized extract of Tongkat Ali and showed some DNA damage. Now, this doesn't prove that a typical human amount causes cancer, but it's enough to keep it outside of my personal recommendations. And then we have DHEA. And so if you know a little bit about steroids, some of the steroids can move back and forth in their production line, you could say. In an independent 2-year trial, they looked at older men with low DHEAS and low bioavailable testosterone. And they showed that giving DHEA increased DHEAS, but it didn't restore insulin sensitivity, it didn't increase total testosterone levels, improve physical performance, or improve quality of life. And the issue was estradiol, so one of the estrogens, actually increased. Now, some would say DHEA is on the World Anti-Doping Agency's list, and some people think that everything that's on that list definitely works. Now, this study didn't show that, and maybe it was because it was in older men who were already too overweight, and that's why you had the conversion from testosterone to estrogen. But to be honest, we haven't seen positive results either. But then we have vitamin D, which is the opposite case. One early analysis with 58 overweight men with low vitamin D, it looked promising. But later studies and a later meta-analysis from this year didn't show clear, repeatable effects on total testosterone or free testosterone. Now, vitamin D is very important if you're deficient or if you're low, but we can't use it as a testosterone booster if you already have normal testosterone levels. Now, if any of these that I just mentioned worked for you, you felt better, then that's great. That's obviously the most important thing. Now, knowing the names of all of these things is great, but we still have the hardest question left, which is which option fits your situation the best? Because a video like this can tell you about 3 candidates that you can take, but it's not going to know what your labs are, what your symptoms are, fertility goals, medication, history, training, sleep, diet, all of those are unknown. And that decision needs interpretation, sequence, maybe even risk control, and then follow through. This is the work that I do inside of my performance rebuild mentorship, and even more in my private one-to-one mentorship. And the client that I mentioned before, Matteo, didn't just receive a shopping list. And the valuable thing for him wasn't chasing the highest number. Now, was it nice to get total testosterone above 1,000? Yeah, why not? But we figured out what mattered to him, and then we solved for that. And so if that's something that sounds interesting to you, check out both of those links in the description. And if it's not, then that's fine. Even if you've never worked with me, at least listen to these 5 questions that I always ask before buying another bottle of supplements. Question 1, what's the quality of human evidence? Here, you look for a real comparison group. Did it have enough people? What was the useful duration? And was there any funding behind that decision? Question 2 is who was studied. If they looked at deficient men, so men who had low testosterone, that's a different story than men who already had normal testosterone levels who were looking to improve and even optimize. Question 3, what actually changed? Was it just the number, or did they also feel better? And which number was it? Was it total testosterone while free didn't change? Then that's a less useful signal. Question 4, what could make it a poor fit? Here you have to think about medication, your history, and even safety guidelines. And question 5, did the result matter outside the laboratory? So like I said before, did it improve their energy levels, their libido, their recovery? Or was it just the number in the blood work that improved? Now, if you've ever had your testosterone levels checked and you can see it's low and you have fatigue, if you have low energy, if your libido isn't that great, if it's hard to get an erection, these things, you should probably speak to a doctor about getting proper checks, because there you need a diagnosis and not just a random supplement bottle. But then if you do have normal testosterone levels, that can still be a lie. Watch the next video to understand exactly why that is.